very good evening to everybody watching. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Evening Review. My name is Taiwan Jabela. Tonight on the platform we are joined by Dr. Panduleni Itula. He is president of the Independent Patriots for Change, and he is that party's presidential candidate in the 2024 election. Doctor, it's always a pleasure really engaging with you. Thank you for coming to the platform.
Thank you very much indeed, and good evening to Namibia, which is preparing for the festive season.
Yes.
Drive carefully, mirror, signal, maneuver.
Absolutely.
Check, don't follow somebody overtaking.
Absolutely.
Make your own judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. That's a very, very important message. So I think let's talk about 2024. I mean, everybody's talking about it. It's the future, and it's just we're on the verge of crossing into 2024, God willing. So you stood as, for the presidential office in 2019, and you want to give it another shot. You are giving it another shot in 2024. What do you think will be different in your game this time around? What will you do differently this time around to now cross over to that?
Well, thank you very much indeed. I'm not giving it another shot because I'm not standing as an independent presidential candidate.
Yes.
I had been selected by the party and the party's supporters and members, and they asked me whether I would be willing to stand for the party, and I took an oath that I would be willing to do so.
Yes.
But on this occasion, I am not doing it on my own. I'm doing it with an entire infrastructure of support behind me. Actually, today is the 27th of November, and the elections, more likely than not, will be on the 27th of November next year.
Yeah.
So it will be a Friday.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same date, the same day of the week as in 2019.
Okay.
In 2019, I had only 3 weeks of campaigning, and in 2019, I did not have a support base at all. I didn't have a political party. So far, actually, as a matter of fact, I'm the only presidential candidate in the Republic of Namibia, as all the other political parties have not sorted out their presidential candidate. And we have already started preparing for 2024, and we've actually worked out exactly the winning formula that will bring us victory on the 28th of November 2024. And that has got quite a lot of activities that is taking place. Some of them confidential, some of them not so confidential. We've got the magic word, as it were, to make sure that Namibia, as we approaches June, July, will be hit by some democratic, legitimate means of mobilizing people. And we have already stated that in terms of the Electoral Act, the objective principle of political parties is to promote and participate in political elections. Yeah. And that is effectively what we have been doing. And I know that there has been a lot of rumbling and sounds of people saying, why are we doing this, etc. We are doing exactly what is required from the Act. Now, in 2019, people may not have noted this. We maintain that we won the elections. Something was done to the elections that resulted in the results that was pronounced. For example, up to now, 7,000 votes of Windhoek Rural are still allocated to the candidate of UDF. The ECN has not explained how that manually went from one candidate to the next. We believe the elections were rigged, and that was just a remnant of it. But
you believe that a UDF candidate is incapable of getting that, or what? Or why?
No, they have just given him the 7,000 votes. You know, the results that was allocated in 2019 was such that His Excellency Dr. Hage Gottfried Keikop was allocated 464,703 votes. I was allocated 242,657,000. It should have been 249,657 votes. And if you look at the gazetted figure, it's saying exactly that. If you look at the IPPR figure, which figure they received from the ECN, is giving me a 30% win as opposed to the 29 which is gazetted. Up to now, departed Teo Muyoro could not explain it. And when he explained it, he caught himself because he explained a system of ballot papers that were collated, and somehow information was put on a 2014 paper of candidates. And I didn't participate in 2014, neither did we use ballot papers. And we recorded that interview with him as well. And up to now, the ECN has not cleared out how did 7,000 votes go from the independent candidate to another political party candidate. So we know from that evidence, and they didn't deny it, that the elections were rigged.
Yeah.
And one thing that is important is this, that how will it be different from this side? I was contesting against a sitting president with all the state machineries. And notwithstanding that, in Windhoek, I scored 66,000 votes against His Excellency Dr. Hage Gottfried Keinkop's 43,000. And when you look at the entire Erongo, I scored 33,000 votes against His Excellency's 23,000 votes. And when you look at the Oshana makeup, His Excellency scored 43,000 against my 40,000. So that was how close these elections were contested for someone who's only actually campaigned for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, taking into consideration that the top north has got 525,000 registered voters, if I can only score 50% of that, if IPC can only score 50% of that, and if the going currency is 8,000 votes to gain one parliamentary seat, it means that dividing 260,000, which is roughly 50%, IPC will be able to get 32 seats in parliament just using the northern 4-0 region votes. And when you look at the registered voters in Windhoek, which is 257,000, if we get 70,000 of that, taking into consideration that we scored 66,000 against 43,000, if that's reflective enough, we will be able to score about 180,000, and dividing that again with 8,000 will get 22. And if that is reflective of the seats, that will now be 54 seats in parliament. We have already gone past the 50% in terms of 48, which is the 50% of the 96. Yeah. Now, taking the Erongo region on, which has got 113,000 registered voters, and we did so well in Erongo, nearly 70%. If we get 70% of 113, we are close to getting 9 to 10 seats in parliament just from there. Now 54 plus 9 gives us 63, very, very close to a two-thirds majority. The seriousness with which we look at this is such that we are already convinced that the IPC shall be the governing party. The question is, how big is the majority going to be? And that is based on real data analysis. Yeah. And when you look in the local and regional council elections as well, the SWAPO party scored about 256,000 votes. IPC scored 89,000 votes. PDM, that has been here since 1977, scored only 36,000 votes, and LPM 35,000 votes. So within 3 months, IPC was able to climb the ladder and go past all these existing political parties to challenge really the SWAPO party. And we are talking about the local authority elections and the regional authority elections, therefore people in towns. And that is reflected in the number of councillors. We've got 67 of them around. So that is only the urban vote. So we are absolutely confident, evidence-based, that we shall be winning these elections. Yeah. It's a question of by how much only.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, the campaign is one element. You galvanize people around your programs and vision. But there's also the element of what did the party or its candidate do in the past couple of years to convince people that the Dr. Itula that we voted for in 2019 is now even a better candidate for 2024, and therefore we are now going to rally behind him. What is it that you think you have done in that space of time to convince more voters to come to your camp?
I think Namibians have got a tendency of starting to believe in people who make a lot of noise. Yeah. People who make a lot of noise very often make that noise out of lack of evidence-based information. Our first task was to make sure that we first get an idea of what is taking place in Namibia.
Yeah.
We were able to go to over 130 various ministries, agencies, traditional authorities, entities, embassies, etc., to try and gauge what is Namibia. We started off with Honorable Kapofi's Ministry, Home Affairs, to discuss what is taking place, the porosity of our borders. We have been to the ECN. We have even been to the ECN to say that the Namibian constitution allows only citizens to vote and not anybody who's holding a voter's card. Your qualification to vote is to show that you are a Namibian citizen. And I believe that the ACN is now going to allow people with IDs only and voters' cards to vote. If you go there with a voter's card, you will not be able to vote. So I was able to travel the entire country to educate myself of the needs of the people of Namibia before I start saying, what am I going to be doing for the Namibian people? Because very often there is a top-down approach on policy issues. Policies must be an externalization of the needs of the people, must be a need to satisfy the needs of the people. And we cannot start putting policies together early enough to say, we are going to do this, we are going to do this, without having established what are the needs of the people, what will it cost to try and satisfy those needs, how much is in the kitty, how much is in the revenue, what is the economic situation that will be conducive to us to ensure that we can provide jobs, especially for the young people in this country. What is our foreign policies doing in terms of cultivating foreign direct investment in this country? So what is it that needs to be? It's going to be different when the people vote for the IPC presidential candidate, because we are going to approach the government completely differently. We are going to be saving money, especially on the number of ministries. We have already indicated that we will reduce the ministries from 23 to 13. We indicated we are going to reduce the state-owned enterprises from 93 to 53, and we are working on it. We have actually consolidated and merged departments to save money. And by just simply doing that, we saved 11.8 billion per annum for that. And when we look at how we grow our economy, we need to look at a number of things: our consumers, our government spending that we are working on in reduction of the rather bloated government of the Republic of Namibia, and working on factors that will be able to create a conducive environment for foreign people to come and invest, and also for Namibians to invest in their own country, and creating an arm of investment into the youth entrepreneurship as well, to ensure our young people can actually do something for their country. All these savings that we are talking about from all these reductions, we then need to put into agriculture to make sure that we are self-sufficient in production, to make sure that we can feed ourselves. We need to tilt this export-import balance to make sure we start increasing our exports and reducing our imports so that we've got a reserve. At the moment, other than for 2015 and 2016, we have been in deficit. We had no surplus at all in our trade balance at all. So there is a lot more that we are going to be doing, and we are working on it very, very hard indeed. We are working on how we are going to govern, what type of governance agenda we are going to be having, what type of legislative agenda we are going to having, and that legislative agenda will be very much dictated by how much of a majority we get in the National Assembly as well. All these are being looked at to make sure we are not knocking at doors after inauguration to say, how do we do this? We are getting ready very, very much earlier on. So
the local authorities that you are in charge of, especially in the Rongo region, will be seen by many of us as sort of the window through which we can see the kind of leadership that IPC at a national level will bring. What is it that you think you've done in those areas that is really worth mentioning, that could convince a person or two to say, but if they can replicate that at a national level, then our country is going to be a better place to stay?
We must take into consideration that local authorities are creatures of parliament. They are dictated by an act of parliament as to what they do. Their principal duties is to provide services to the people. They do not initiate policies, unlike a political party that you actually put in the National Assembly to formulate policies and then to formulate laws based on those policies and execute them in order to effect the needs of the people. Yeah. Local authorities, in terms of Section 30 of the Local Authorities Act, Act 23 of 1992, already states what, within that confinement, local authority can do. Notwithstanding that, certain local authorities such as Walvis Bay and such as Swakopmund has got a window of opportunity to be able to go further without consulting the Minister of Urban and Rural Development. Now, what local authorities do in majority of cases are within their powers given to them by Parliament, but they still need, in certain aspect, approval from the Minister in order to actually carry on. As it was stated by a functionary of the SWAPO party, they've got the strings on the cake. They determine how much they can allow out. So notwithstanding those restraints, local authorities of Oraniemund under IPC and now Luderitz under IPC and Walvis Bay and Swakopmund have been able to excel really well within the constraints of the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development. And we have developed, and I'm really impressed with the leadership that IPC has groomed. Those young people, some of them had no clue about politics or governance or anything like that, but they excelled really well. And I can single out our mayor in Oraniemund. They've done really well developing the local needs of the people in Oraniemund. Even the Walvis Bay local authorities as well, developing the housing needs of our people, notwithstanding so much bashing from all these people that are only interested in propaganda, telling half the truth and making sure that they actually impose other things which are not true. And also in Swakopmund, we had a lot of challenges in Swakopmund. It's a community that is very mixed, but a community that has seen the electrification of the informal settlements, the allocation of housing in the installment plots, and also even with the assistance of our councillors, a fire brigade within the vicinity of the local authorities. Now, those are things that has been achieved within 3 years of going into that jungle of confusion and corruption. So what we will do different in central government, we will tackle corruption severely to make sure what is designed to go to provide those services doesn't go in the pocket of a few elite at all. We will make sure that the procurement system is overhauled to ensure that those politically linked are not the ones that are going to benefit, but you'll benefit meritocratically. You need to be able to prove yourself worthy of delivering that service. Before we do that, we will also have to look at how can you allocate a whole bulk of money to one company. We need to make sure that we diversify. We need to empower all the people to make sure Namibia grow together. Yeah. You know, as a head of state, one has to be very, very careful how you actually manage the whole administration. You cannot be too far remote from it, and you have to make sure that you've got an idea of what is taking place. So there's a lot more that we are going to be doing different. The Namibian people on this occasion should understand we are not Virgin Island. We are not an island on our own. We will have to cooperate in terms of local, regional, continental, and global. We don't just trade with ourselves. We need to think about what is taking place in South Africa, what is taking place in Africa in general. The existence of the Organization of African Unity was towards the liberation of Africa. We've done that now. The African Union is towards the development of Africa, development of Namibia. So the community, the Namibians need to think about, when we are talking about Namibia here, as head of state, we have to think about other forums, other institutions that we need to cooperate with in order for us to exist in this highly globalized environment of ours as well.
Yeah, yeah. You said earlier on, Doc, that you are the only, I suppose, formally registered or formally placed candidate for the 2024 election, implying that others other parties have not done the same. A person in SWAPO would say they have Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah as their candidate, at least at party level. First, so two questions in one. One is, what is different in the candidature in terms of the policies and procedures that must be followed to make one a candidate? How are you different from Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah? And secondly, how are you actually going to tackle Netumbo in 2024?
I'm not going to tackle Netumbo unless she is legitimately a candidate for the SWAPO party. Take into consideration that I, in 2016, amended the SWAPO constitution. I know it inside out. I also know the rules governing the election and delegation and appointment of SWAPO party activists into government. What is principally important is this, that the SWAPO party constitution does not in any way make provision for a presidential candidate to contest the presidential elections of the Republic of Namibia. The SWAPO party constitution makes provision for the Congress of the SWAPO party to elect their internal leaders to govern their party.
Yes.
Rule 53 of the SWAPO party rule states that the president of the party shall automatically be the candidate for the national presidential elections. Rule 12 of the SWAPO party rules for electing party leaders states that no position shall be held by automaticity promotion. All positions shall be elective.
Yes.
Now, we need to look at what you do in your house. That's your problem. You can park your cars as much as you want, reverse or anything like that. But when you depart from that house into the boxing arena, I'll need to ask you, did you come through the same door as I did? Because I cannot go into an arena with somebody who came in clandestinely from other things. Now, we've got within the Namibian Constitution, Article 17, that allows for one, to participate in political activities, to form and join political parties, and in the fulfillment of what requirements there are, to contest in public affairs either directly or through freely chosen representative. The selection of SWAPO party candidate is governed, for the internal governing of the SWAPO party, is governed by Rule 35. Rule 35.1 makes the Politburo select 4 people for each of the portfolios. Yes. Rule 35.2 allows that to be transferred to the Central Committee to elect and add or endorse those ones. Now, if there is more than 4 candidates, irrespective of gender, in one portfolio, the Central Committee converts itself into an electoral college and they conduct an election until only 4 candidates are in existence. If the 4 candidates, there isn't any female in them, and let's assume the females didn't make it amongst the 4, the last 2 scoring candidates will be dropped and the female will come up to be part of that process, that 4 that has been selected. Now, they will then, 4 of them, be sent to the Congress to contest for that position. Now, Congress went to sleep for 5 years and said, Central Committee, I'm going to sleep, stay there at Oshoto or whatever, look for who's coming in, etc. When I woke up, I want you to have 4 people from which I will elect their leaders. And what happened is this, that 2 candidates here, Honorable Netumbo and Right Honorable Saraku Hongelwa, came from the Politburo selection without entering the Central Committee elimination process over to the Congress. The only entity in SWAPO empowered to deliver candidates to the Congress is the Central Committee. The Politburo is an administrative extension of the Central Committee, not empowered by the Congress. Now, linking that up to Article 28, sub-article 3 of the Namibian Constitution, which states that all citizens shall have an entitlement to contest for the presidential candidate. Now, the Namibian Constitution in Article 1.6 is the supreme law. The SWAPO Constitution and rules is created in terms of Article 17, so it's subordinate to the Namibian Constitution. The Electoral Act of Namibia, in Section 135, subsection 2, C9, states that all political parties must ensure for periodic, regular, open elections of office bearers. A presidential candidate is an office bearer because in Article 28.4 of the Namibian Constitution, it's clearly stated that provided a registered political party shall have the right to nominate a candidate for the presidential elections. Now, that process is prescribed in the Constitution, and it seeks an open election in the Electoral Act. Now, if you do not fulfill those requirements of the law, SWAPO party needs to understand that no one is above the law, including itself. You must fulfill the requirements of the law before you say you are a candidate. Now, I'm not a registered candidate in terms of the Electoral Act because registration of the candidate, hopefully on the 16th of October 2024, it will be the registration of independent candidate, which is a Wednesday. And then on the Friday, it will be the registration of party representatives. So that hasn't taken place as yet. We only fulfilled our internal procedures, and then we are still to fulfill when the EC and so says.
Sure. Doc, I wish we had more time, but it has to end here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming through. I think the last part of your contribution need further expansion, so we'll find time again so that we expand on this.
Thank you.
Yes, that was Dr. Panduleni Itula. He's president and leader of the Independent Patriots for Change, sharing his views ahead of the blockbuster 2024 elections.